So we're gonna keep it real today. It's pretty normal to go into denial when we're heading into perimenopause, menopause, or post-menopause, that we would need any kind of help in dealing with our emotions and even our overall life. Because by the age we're at, when we reach into those stages, we've been able to handle ourselves. And yeah, we're grown. So even thinking about getting help can make many of us, and by many of us, I mean me, feel weak for not being able to handle all of these things that are coming at us. Trust me, I can safely say that I've worn the crown of the Queen of Denial and Resistance. Hi, my name is Melanie Oyadina and welcome to my channel, where I talk about the emotional challenges that come with menopause, and I also talk about natural hair care tips for type 4 hair during menopause. Today's video is the part 2 of my 5-part series on perimenopause and mental health. But the topic I'm covering today is actually relevant whether you're entering perimenopause, entering menopause, or entering post-menopause. Because I'm going to be talking about 3 common emotional hurdles that feed into our denial about needing to get help. And at the end, I'm going to cover 2 practical things you can do to shift yourself into accepting that it's okay to get help if you need it. So there's one common thread that runs through the emotional hurdles that we will face, and it is that they all involve some type of feeling embarrassed about what we're going through. So the first one that we like to tell ourselves is that we should already have our lives together. It's really funny because I've noticed that women from like their mid-20s to the early 40s have become very open about embracing therapy and getting professional help for whatever issues they may be facing. But I've noticed that for us who are in the mid-40s and up, either we don't talk about it or we're actually not doing it. We're actually not going to seek help. And I feel that that's based in almost judging ourselves because we're saying, well, we've already had so much life experience. And so admitting that we will need help almost feels like we're saying we've been incompetent in some way, or we are being incompetent in some way in handling our lives because we've gotten to 45, 48, 50, 55, 60. Many of us quite independently and being able to handle things ourselves. So like in my case, I hated admitting that I wasn't in control of all that was happening to me, especially because my work history involves being an alternative therapist, hypnotherapy, massage therapy, quite a few therapies. I'm certified in EFT, but when I got sick and realized I couldn't use the tools that I had spent years being trained in on myself, I actually felt pretty useless. I stayed in that place for a long time and it kept me deeply in denial. The second common challenge is when we tell ourselves that our faith isn't strong enough, and that's why we're having these issues and challenges. So let's break it down a little bit. All the stages of menopause come with hormonal changes, and those hormonal changes often impact our emotional and mental health. So we can find that we're facing anxiety, that like we've never had it before, depression deeper than we've ever had it before. For some of us, it will reawaken our childhood trauma. And then for some women, they just lose interest in everything. They find that they can't find a sense of joy. And when that happens, I find that in our generation now, we're more likely to dig deeper into our faith because we're judging ourselves and saying that the reason we can't get over these issues is because our faith is not strong enough. The problem with that approach is that if we go deeper into our faith, we go deeper into our spiritual practices, and we don't find that we're getting the relief from these symptoms, or worse, if the symptoms actually keep increasing. Instead of saying to ourselves that it may be an issue with our body or our brain, we blame ourselves and say it's because we don't have enough faith. And that leads into a vicious cycle. So we criticize ourselves for not having enough faith, which makes us more anxious. And as we get more anxious, we feel more embarrassed by the fact that we're having this increased anxiety, which cycles back right around to the beginning where we're blaming ourselves for having these problems because we are not being spiritual enough. We're not trusting enough. The end game of that cycle is shame, But shame is the most debilitating emotion that we can drop into, because shame means that we feel bad about ourselves. We're not just feeling bad about something we've done, we're feeling bad about ourselves, and that can be quite crippling. I'd be very interested to know if any of you relate to that when you hit any of the stages of menopause and you're going through the challenges, you felt like you weren't being faith-filled enough. So if you relate to that, I'd love to see your comments about how you dealt with that, or actually if you're still dealing with that. Okay, the third common emotional hurdle that I have seen and also experienced is when we look at our friends in the same age group and they're coping just fine. This makes me think of that saying, comparison is the thief of joy. But in this case, comparison is the thief of feeling normal, because we all want to feel normal. My symptoms were so severe, and the more severe they became is the more I denied that I needed help. It was wild. As I mentioned in the other video, I had 6 months of my life where I needed care, and I still at that point didn't want to go get medical help. I still at that point was trying to solve everything on my own. And in the case of other people around me, I knew women that have been having hot flushes and night sweats for years, but they were still able to cope with life in a general sense. And to be honest, I became very angry. I was like, this is not fair. Why is everyone else able to cope and I am falling apart on every level? It took me a little while to get to understand that, listen, not everybody's gonna tell you all that they're going through, number one. And then also to realize that because my symptoms were more intense, didn't mean that I was less than in any way. Whatever symptoms you're facing are a personal combination of your life experiences, how intense your hormonal changes are. You could also have hereditary issues, and it also depends on how your current life is going. There are a lot of factors that come together that will determine the impact of your symptoms. And at the end of the day, actually, my diagnosis is complex PTSD. And like my doctor said to me, because he treats soldiers, he told me that my symptoms were as severe as someone returning from war. Huh? By the way, if you're enjoying this content, please click the like button below, as it encourages YouTube to show this content to other people. So from what I have observed in myself and in others, the three main categories of emotions that feed into our denial that we could need help during any of these stages are feeling incompetent at how we're handling our lives, feeling shame at not having a strong enough faith, and anger at feeling that life is unfair. The way to move ourselves out of denial is to flip the script on all of these emotional hurdles that we've spoken about, because if you look at it and step back from it, you can see that what you're doing is just talking negatively to yourself and convincing yourself of things that are just not true. It's very good to remember that emotional health is not different from health. So it's like we feel comfortable if we know we have developed high blood pressure to go and see the doctor and do whatever is necessary. But when it comes to emotional health, we're not looking at it like that. We keep thinking that emotional health is something that we should be able to solve on our own, which, if you take it from that perspective, that's not a full picture. You can have high blood pressure that you can resolve on your own, or you can have high blood pressure that needs medication. Same with emotional problems. You can have emotional problems that you can resolve through all kinds of alternative therapies, or you can have emotional health problems that need you to go and get medical care. So like I promised you at the beginning, there are two very simple actions that I believe can help to move you out of denial. One is to find friends or family who you trust to be open and who are either your age or older, and ask them to be very real with you about what perimenopause, menopause, or post-menopause were like for them. I don't think there's anyone that goes through all these three stages absolutely smooth sailing with no issues. And so speaking to someone like that can help you to feel not so alone. That's one. Number two, so this one I feel is more important. Find a safe person to speak to so that you can speak out loud your struggles and not feel like you will be judged. You know, like saying, I feel like this depression that I'm handling is because my faith is weak. Because if my faith wasn't weak, then these symptoms wouldn't be lingering. And I can almost guarantee you, if you hear yourself saying all of those things, you'll realize that no, it has nothing to do with whether you're being faith-filled or not. You're having a medical issue. So basically, I feel like identifying the emotions that are keeping you in denial and then allowing yourself to be open with someone safe about your embarrassment, about whatever you're feeling, it will be simpler for you to be clear about whether you need to get help. And you'll also be more open to figuring out what type of help you need. So in the next video, which will be part 3, we'll talk about the challenges and difficulties of finding the right health professionals. It's a well-known fact that many doctors don't actually know enough about menopause. But if the challenges you're facing are greater than you can handle on your own, then it is definitely worth all the time and effort that it will take to find the right doctors that can fit your needs. I'll preview a lot of what I'm going to say by saying I have finally found the doctors that work well for me, and I am absolutely grateful for every single one of them. But it was a journey. So if you haven't yet, please do subscribe. I'm going to link part 1 of the series in the end card and down in the description below. I just really want to encourage you, do not suffer in silence. And to know that if you happen to need help, it doesn't mean that you're weak in any way. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.